Okay, I'm going to try and do this last part quickly. Um, Try to do it. Let's see here. Current slide. Okay, so we just talked about the international date line and the time zones. So maybe obviously there are 24 time zones because there are 24 hours and they're split up into 15-degree time zones. Just for fun, I'm going to tell you if my computer will come on. Okay, just for fun, I'm going to tell you the time zones that affect the United States are the Atlantic Standard Zone, the Eastern Standard Zone, Central Standard, and you remember that Kentucky is in Eastern except it reaches over into Central, like Paducah area. Um, so we have Central, Mountain, Pacific, and then we have what's called Alaskan Standard. Then we have Hawaii Aleutian. Then Samoa Standard, and then Chamorro. There's going to be here, 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 Chamorro. So those are the time zones that affect the United States. Okay, so we just have a smidge left. So geographic information science is sometimes called GI science, and this involves the development and analysis of data about Earth acquired through satellite and other electronic information technologies. And this is going to be GIS, so this is confusing because this is GI science, which is geographic information science, okay? Geographic information science includes two things. One, geographic information system, also GIS, and it's going to include GPS, which is Global Positioning System. Okay, take a minute, kind of take that in. So, geographic information science involves collecting data through remote sensing. Remote sensing is the acquisition of data about Earth's surface from a satellite orbiting Earth or from other long-distance methods. This is remote sensing. That was a bit repetitive. Okay. So, this involves sensors scanning the Earth's surface. Individual pixels are transmitted to a receiving station on Earth, where a computer assembles those pixels into an image, and then it creates maps using remotely sensed data. It makes a grid of rows and columns of pixels, and that represents radiation being reflected on the Earth's surface at a specific point. It's kind of intense. Okay, so first we have GPS. GPS is Global Positioning System, and this determines specific position of something on Earth. So in the United States, this involves three elements. One, satellites placed in predetermined orbits. Two, tracking stations to monitor and control satellites. And three, a receiver that can locate at least four satellites and figure out its distance from each and use that information to calculate its precise location. So today, these are used by, if any of you guys have a TomTom or a, I don't remember, TomTom, that's what I had, turn-by-turn directions in your vehicles, or a navigational guide for pilots and ship captains. Most of us today have these for social media, like, on your, I don't know, I still do Facebook because I'm really old, but do any of the other things do this? Where like I can be on Facebook and be like, I'm at home, and it tells where I am, or it can be like, I'm at school, and it tells where I am. Also, on your smartphone, obviously, you can be like, Siri, I need to get to Subway, and it'll tell you how to get to Subway. So what's really amazing about GPS is that GPS used to be something just for the military, and it's somewhat recent that it's been released to the public at large. So I used to not be able to get anywhere. This is terrifying. We can all admit it. I have absolutely no sense of direction, none. And the fact that they let me teach geography is incredible. But so until I had a TomTom, a GPS, I could not find my way out of my own town. It was terrifying. Like my friends would come over and my parents would give my friends directions. They would just ignore me. And I was like, look at the maps. They're pretty colors. So So once I got a TomTom, I can drive I've driven to Maine, I've driven to Washington State, I've driven all over the country, just that TomTom. Although TomToms will ask you like, do you want to drive on toll roads? And you're like, yes, no. They will not ask you, do you want to drive on like 15 miles of gravel back roads? They'll just send you there. Um, TomToms do have trouble though in like backwoods Kentucky. They're like I've been out in Rockcastle County, and your TomTom will be like, "I'm out, man. I don't know where we are, Deliverance or something." Okay, so GIS is layering data. So this is geographic information. Oh, I want to tell you more about GPS. Hold on. I know I told you it was going to be quick, but so I listened to this really great TED Radio Hour. If you don't listen to this, you totally should. If you listen to TED Talks, your excuse. But TED Radio Hour, what they do is they take several TED Talks and they take like chunks of each one by like theme and they put them together. So I can't remember. I think maybe this one was on technology. I'm not sure exactly, but they were talking about like where GPS came from, and it was somebody who I want to say had like figured out how to put like a warhead. I mean, that's really menacing. I don't mean to be quite that menacing, but they had figured out how to like put something somewhere and say like, hey, this thing is here and this is how we can keep an eye on it. And the government came to them and were like, hey, we are going to use this to find other weaponry. So that's like what GPS was initially for, was to use satellite to locate essentially bombs. So the idea that this thing we all have on our phones, like, hey Siri, how do you get to Dairy Queen? This thing still is, I'm sure, on a much larger scale, but was essentially initially invented to be this thing to like search out and find, bombs. That's kind of scary. I mean, scary and yet also like probably somewhat assuring, I guess. Okay, moving on. GIS. So GIS is Geographic Information System. And this is a computer system that captures, stores, queries, so it like asks questions of, analyzes and displays geographic data, and it stores all that data in layers. So let me show you some of those layers so that makes sense. So this layer has all the cities in Colorado, and then this layer has all the highways. This layer has all the landforms. We've got some mountains there. And then this layer mashes them all together. We've also got some borders here, so state borders. So it takes all those layers, and the layers allow us to see relationships among different kinds of information. So those layers are put together in what's called a mashup, and that helps us to see all that information together. So what GIS does is it takes what it does is, whereas cartographers used to draw maps with pen and paper, in any careless moment, it could result in an object being placed in the wrong location. GIS is so much more efficient than pen and ink because objects can be added or removed, colors brightened or toned down, mistakes corrected, as long as a person finds them without having to tear up the paper and start from scratch. So everything is stored in a layer, and separate layers can be created for boundaries of countries, bodies of water, roads, names of places, and a single map can display a single layer by itself, or they can combine multiple layers, and this permits construction of a much more complex map than can ever be drawn by hand. So the layers show relationships among different kinds of information. They can show hillsides in case developers are coming in. They can show, they can compare a layer of recently built houses with a layer of steep slopes. They show, they calculate relationships between objects on the map that are significant or merely coincidental. They show where cancer rates are relatively high and low. They can be combined with layers showing the location of people with various incomes and ethnicities, the location of various types of factories, and the locations of mountains and valleys. So it's a pretty amazing thing that cartographers are now able to do with all this information. Okay, so computer users are able to do their own GIS by using something called Application Programming Interface, API. And this links a database such as an address list with software such as mapping. An API for mapping software is available at Google. And so you go to google.com/APIS/maps. And this allows you to create a mashup that places data on a map. Let's see. Blah, 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 blah. Oh, and so the term mashup, FYI, comes from, when you put like two songs together, that's where it comes from. Okay, let's see. I think, friends, that is, yeah, that's the end. So I hope you have a lovely evening, and I will see you all tomorrow.